Alright, welcome Buzztouchers. In this tutorial I'm going to talk to you about using the JSON Snippet Keeper plugin, and I'm going to talk to you today about using it to develop other plugins with. Now previously in my other tutorial we talked about how to use the JSON Snippet Keeper to save time and copy sections of one app into another. Well, this time we're going to talk about if you're creating a new plugin, why would it be smart or helpful to use the JSON Snippet Keeper in that effort? So I'm going to step you through actually making just a simple little plugin, and hopefully you'll see the benefits. So let's start off by going into just a sample project I have here. It's completely brand new. Before this, I actually created a plugin. I went into the plugin creator and created a plugin called One Button, and so that's going to show up in here. But this brand new app here, we're going to see has no screens or anything. So this is brand new. I have downloaded the code already, downloaded the source files for Xcode, and we're going to run it in that in just a minute. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add that screen to this. So I'm going to go into the home screen menu and add it as one of the row titles here. So we're just going to call this One Button, and this is going to be our simple plugin screen. And I'm going to pick this One Button plugin that I just created. Now the control panel doesn't know anything about this yet because this isn't an actual plugin that's in the market. It's not a published plugin yet. This is just one I'm developing. So when we look at the properties for this plugin, then we'll see that it's just a blank, the default properties, and pretty much just the stuff you can set up for the view controller. So the screen nickname, the background color, background image, same stuff that we saw David do in his Let's Make a Plugin presentation. So this is going to be similar in that fact, but it's going to get different in the fact that I'm using the JSON Snippet Keeper. So not a whole lot of anything special yet. You can see in the configuration data that we've just got our home screen here, and then this one item type of One Button, which will be our One Button screen for the plugin that has no properties or anything yet. So let's take a look at those screens again. And what I'm going to do with this One Button plugin is I'm going to have it load from a button. I'm going to have it load another screen. So let's just create another screen real quick, and we're just going to call it website, and it's just going to be a custom URL screen, just something for it to go to. And let's go into this website real quick, and it says Google. That's good enough. So back to our screens again. So we've got the home screen menu, which links to the One Button plugin, the One Button plugin, which will eventually lead to the website screen. So let's take a look at what's going on in Xcode so far. So I've already downloaded this Stobes plugin project. I've dragged in the appropriate folders. You can see my One Button folders in here in my plugins, and I've got the two empty files here. They're not completely empty, but they're empty in the fact that there's just enough to get the view controller working, just the stuff that the plugin maker creates for us, but it doesn't really do anything yet. So let's go ahead and look to see what's happening so far. When I run it in the simulator, okay, I'll force it. So there's the list menu with the One Button, and the One Button screen just goes to that. So far so good. You can see that I've got my menu and I've got my plugin, and we're ready to start making this plugin. So let me go back to the plugin screen real quick, and we're just going to make sure that this thing is working. So I'm going to select a background color, hit save, go back to my simulator, refresh, and we can see that it is taking on the properties from the JSON. Alright, so that's as far as we can go in here. We can get a nickname, the navigation bar, the background image, and that's about it. There's going to be a whole bunch of other things that will eventually come in here, but they won't be here until we can actually get the plugin submitted and approved, and then we can start playing with that. The alternative way of doing this is to have a self-hosted control panel, and then editing the index.php file and creating the screen yourself, and then constantly updating it and putting in all the new parameters. But we're going to see how we can just use this JSON Snippet Keeper plugin to kind of bypass that in the meantime, just to make things quicker for development. Alright, so I want to get this project started, and this one button plugin, we want to have one button. So let's go ahead and add a new file. And we're going to use an empty user interface. This will be our nib file. We're going to have an iPhone variety. And we need to make sure that we call this exactly the same thing as our class files were. And you can see I need to change this O to a capital O. And then you can see that our nib file is down here in our plugin folder, and it's sitting here waiting for a view. Alright, so let's find our view. Let's drag this view into our interface builder. And I'm going to make this a 3.5-inch screen. So this is going to be the view that we're creating that we want to put our button on. So we need the view, we're going to need a button. I'm just going to drag it right in there. And we're going to connect a couple things up here in a minute. Alright, so let's tell this file owner what class it is we're working with. And we're going to find in here our plugin name. There it is. Now this particular nib file knows what class it belongs to. Even though it's named the same, now it really knows who it belongs to. So we're going to take the view now that we drugged in there, and we're going to connect that to the file owner and tell it that it's the view for that nib file. And before we can connect the button, we need to actually define the button. So we need to tell this header file that the button exists. It's an IB outlet. It's going to be a UI button. And we're going to name it CR button 1. And we're going to need to add the property for it. You can tell I'm not as fast as David is with this, but I'm still learning. Alright, and eventually this button is going to have an action involved with it when we click on it. So let's go ahead and add the action in. It's an interface builder action. The selector is going to be, we're going to call it CR button 1 tap. And that should just about do it for our header file, our .h file. So now we need to go into our .m file and get it ready also. So we're going to synthesize that button. And there it is. Eventually we're going to have that button tap also. So let's go back here, copy this IB action, and we'll get that ready for putting in some code in here for when the button actually taps. First thing that I will do is we'll take this debugger, copy it in here, paste it in there. It's always a good idea to have the button or the debugger active so we'll be able to see if the button's actually working. So let's go back to our nib file and let's look at our button. So now with our outlets, we can drag the new referencing outlet over to the file's owner, and now it recognizes that there's a CR button that's been defined. So we're going to select that, and then we're going to take this touch up inside, which is a tap control, and we're going to say that when it taps we want to run this function here, CR button 1 tap. So now let's take one more second here to make this view background clear. And let's just call this button 1. And now let's load it up and see what happens. So it's going to compile in that nib file along with the other changes that we made. And here's our home menu, here's our plugin. Background color is still there, here's the button. And we can see down here in the debugger that it is recognizing that we're tapping that button. We haven't told it to do anything yet, but it is recognizing it. So far everything is working fine. So the next thing that we want to do is, this is the point where we can actually connect in the button to have it actually do something. So we haven't got to the JSON Snippet Keeper yet, but we're going to get there. I just want to get this all working first. So here's the button tap. And let me paste in some code. Alright, so I've pasted some code in here into the CR button 1 tap method. And this is just a standard method that Buzztouch uses for loading in another screen from one screen to another on a button tap or something. So what we need to do, what it's looking for, is it's looking for either a screen nickname or a screen item ID. So it's looking for either one of these JSON property values, which I've named button1 screen ID or button1 screen nickname. Now the problem is we know what that screen name is, we know which screen we want to load, but the app certainly doesn't know that. And there's no way to tell the control panel what that is either, because we don't have any place to load in that information. So it's looking for this that it's never going to get from the btconfig text because the control panel can't send it until that index.php is all finalized, and then you can actually fill it in and it will work just fine. But during development we can't do that, so we're going to have to do something else. One thing that we could do is what I called hard coding this in here. So we could actually type in the screen nickname here and bypass this whole get JSON property value thing, and we could just name this load screen name, web page or whatever it is that we wanted to pull. But the problem with that is it'll work fine in a pinch, but you might forget, 100 lines of code later, you might forget that you hard-coded something in here, and it'll stay stuck in there, and you might accidentally submit that, and that just wouldn't be a good thing. So we want to give control of this page that's going to load to the control panel. So let me show you how we're going to do that. Let's go back to our control panel again. Here it is. You can see that we still have no way of typing in what screen we want to load when this button taps. So what we're going to have to do is let's go back and look at that configuration data. Let's find the actual screen item, and here's the home screen menu. Here's the screen right here that defines the plugin screen, the one button screen with the nickname of one button, and we're going to want to connect this to this other website here. But let's worry about this one at first. So we're going to take this and we're going to copy the whole JSON string here that defines and creates a screen. Copy that, and we're going to go back to our screens, and I'm going to add a new screen. This time we're going to call it one button. Let's just call it one button JSON snippet, and we're going to make a JSON Snippet Keeper plugin. So go back to our screens, we'll see it here. So we've got the original home screen, we've got the one button, the new plugin we're working on, the screen that's going to lead to, and here's this new one that we just created. So I'm going to say that this one button screen isn't going to work very good anymore, so I'm going to actually get rid of it eventually. But let's go inside this JSON Snippet Keeper here, and as we learned from previous tutorials, we can put any kind of JSON in here that we want, and it's going to append that. It's going to actually just inject that right into the BT config text. So I'm going to just take this and paste in that one button screen that I created. In essence, this is going to create it again. But this time I'm going to take the item ID of the JSON Snippet Keeper here. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to paste it over the item ID of the screen that actually exists in the control panel. And the reason I'm doing that is I want to give this new screen I'm creating the identity of the JSON Snippet Keeper so I can actually address it from menus. So I'm going to paste this item ID right here, and that's why it's right here, so that we can quickly copy it. And when I do this, it's going to create a new screen that's not going to be visible in the control panel, but it's going to do the same thing that our existing screen did. So let's save that. Let's go back to our screens here. I'm going to replace this one, the one button screen that was actual plugin. I'm going to take that out, and we're going to call this new row one button JSON, and we're going to select that JSON Snippet Keeper that we created. So now the menu is linked to this new screen that we just created with the JSON Snippet Keeper. If we look at the configuration data again real quick, we'll see that everything was still the same except for this new item ID right here that thinks it's a one button plugin, and it thinks it still has the same item nickname as the original one. That'll only be a problem if we need to navigate to it. We can change that later. And it just thinks it's the same thing, it's just going to find itself on a different item ID, and that's the item ID that we're actually referencing right here in our child items of the menu. So now when I navigate, and actually we can go back to the screens just to prove this. And we're going to delete this original plugin screen out. We don't need it anymore. Now we just have the home screen, which should be linked to our bootlegged plugin that I've created with the JSON Snippet Keeper, and then we're eventually going to lead that to here. So let's go back to our simulator and refresh it. Now you can see that the menu is updated with the new one button JSON, and it goes and it finds the same exact screen, because we just told that screen, basically we told this JSON Snippet Keeper to take on all the same properties of our plugin, but what that's going to do is it's going to give us more options. So let's go back into this .m file and find what it's looking for. It's looking for, let's say, this button one screen nickname. So we're going to copy this, the JSON that it's looking for, and we're going to bring that back into our JSON Snippet Keeper, and we're going to add that right in here as if we were the control panel adding it, but we're doing it manually. So we're going to add that property. We're going to give it what it wants. The nickname of that, I believe, was website, and we'll double check that. Once I hit save, it's saying the button one screen nickname should be website. So let's look at our screens again real quick, and there it is. So now when we rerun the simulator, you can see we've got our one button JSON menu item instead of the one button. It leads to our screen here. We've given it the information that it needs for the button one screen nickname, and when we click on that button now, it actually finds the web page. So this right here has been completely impossible up to this point without using the JSON Snippet Keeper. There's no way to manually give that JSON. Now I say there's no way, there is a way, but it's not real conducive to rapid prototyping of plugins. We could have gone back up here to the btconfig and looked at the btconfig text, which is the original one that we downloaded, not the updated one in the control panel. We could paste the updated one in here. We could delete out the data URL, essentially cutting it off from the control panel. Then we could make the changes manually in this config text, and then we could see those changes happen. But that's not what we want to do. We want to be able to make the changes in the control panel so that we can make changes quickly, save them, and see how they react. So now that we've got one JSON parameter going to the control panel, we can actually change that and just double check that it's working. So let's go back down here, back to our control panel, and let's say we wanted to change that button to actually lead back to the home screen for whatever reason. So we just go back into here, we change this nickname instead of to website to home screen menu, I think it was called. Save that, double check, home screen menu. So it's saved now. I should just have to go back here, refresh the app, find our one button, and there it is. Now we've just completely changed it. Go back in here and change it how it was. And we could use anything that we wanted for that, any screen that we've created. Resave that, refresh, and we're back to the web page. Alright, so we want to add some more functionality to this. That's one example of adding one line in here manually, but let's add some more stuff in there. Let's make it do something different. So let's go back and look at our actual nib file. And we've got this one button here. maybe in our plugin we're going to want to allow the end user to add a button background. So I'm going to change the size of this to a 120 by 120 button, and we'll just put it somewhere in there. And I'm going to, with this plugin that I'm creating, give the user some way of adding a background image to that. So that's something obviously that we're going to want to give them control in the control panel with. So with that in mind, we're going to have to give them another JSON parameter. So somewhere in the view did loader, the view will appear. I'm going to make that graphic on there. So I'm going to take some text, some code, and I'm going to paste it into the view will appear. And this is saying that I'm going to take another string from another JSON property value, this time called CR button1 image small device, and the default is going to be button1.png, and we're going to assign that to that button. We're going to assign that as a background image to that button. So here's another parameter that we need to add in. So I'm going to copy that. In the meantime, I'm going to take this button1.png and I'm going to drag it in to my images. So the next time it compiles, it'll copy that to the simulator. And right now, since it's the default here, we should be able to run it and it should show up. And there it is. There's the button1 graphic on there. So let's take the default out so we can actually prove that it works. And we're going to take this JSON string. We're going to copy that, bring it back to our control panel, add this as just another parameter. So here's the property. We want it to be button1.png and save that. Now we've told the control panel that this CR button1 image small device is going to be named button1.png. So go back to Xcode. We're going to compile it. Yes, I want to refresh so it knows what it's looking for. And there it is. Still works the same way. I just gave it a different background. And not only that, but I've given that background to the end user of this plugin so that they can actually define what they want. We can go several steps further and give them options of setting the width and the height, setting the position on the screen somewhere. But this right here is going to just prove what I'm talking about when I say that the JSON Snippet Keeper, it helps me a lot. I've been using it non-stop for all of my plugin development, just as a way to rapidly get all the many JSON strings, JSON properties that I'm coding into the plugin, and I'm able to set them in my control panel so that I can actually see them work. Now once this is all done, we will have to go into that index.php and create what the plugin, what this screen is going to look for that plugin. And in there, by the time we get this all done, we'll have an inventory as this starts growing and growing of all the JSON parameters that we are looking for because we coded them into the app itself. And it gives us an inventory of things that we need to account for in the index.php. So in that first index file that we looked at that had the screen background color and the screen image background and the navbar title, we would have little sections in there to say what do we want the small device button 1 image to be? What do we want the screen when you tap it? What screen do you want to go to? So there might be a screen picker, just like in any of the other menus. And the list would go on and on as we keep on adding to this. And we would just account for those in our index.php. And then we'd have a fully working plugin. So if you have any questions about how this would work, or if you want to see more examples, please by all means get a hold of me either through the Buzztouch forums. I'm username Stobe, or you can email me at qpapps@gmail.com. And other than that, be on the lookout for more tutorials using the JSON Snippet Keeper.